All right. Good morning, Scoop Nation. Happy Wednesday, November 30th, 2022. We are now just a few short days removed from the game that was 2 years in a row. And before I introduce who is obviously my guest today to talk about this game, everybody out there in the YouTube verse, particularly the hundreds of comments on my last video on, don't even remember what day it was, where I predicted that Ohio State would beat that team up north by double digits. To all of you in the comment section, because I know you're watching, I was wrong. I was wrong in my prediction. Ohio State very clearly, horrifyingly enough, did not win by double digits in this game. In fact, Michigan did win by double digits in this game, although it was a much closer game than double digits would anticipate or would indicate, rather, which is, again, something that I predicted just on the opposite side there. But I was wrong, and I will gladly admit where I was wrong on my takes. I'm a man of my word, and I take ownership over them. I was wrong. And that's that. That is that. But 10 out of 10 times, I will make the exact same prediction. So I don't learn from my mistakes very clearly, as most Ohio State fans don't. But 10 out of 10 times. And I'd be wrong, 1 out of 10 times, because the rest of them, they would definitely go my way. But as I mentioned, TJ Downing joining me here today on the podcast to talk about this game. TJ, how you doing, brother?
Well, we're hanging in there. We're still above ground. I guess I got the glasses on to block the haters out, but I probably should have come out like the black cloak with the sickle, kind of like the Grim Reaper, because I think that's kind of where everybody here in Buckeye Nation is at right now. Scoop Nation, everybody, and you're right, man. I mean, come on, every score prediction, every post we've done, every thread we've launched, nobody's picking against Ohio State.
Yeah.
So
if you're coming to watch an Ohio State podcast, what do you think is going to happen? Like,
yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Michigan's going to win 42-21.
Right. Guarantee you every Michigan podcast picked Michigan to win too. So
100%. But you know what, man? It's it was tough to watch. It's obviously it's in the rear view now. So we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna break it down. We're gonna analyze. What maybe could have been done better. What could be done differently in the future. And just you got to pick up the pieces and move on. Listen, life itself, outside of the game of football, is about wins and losses. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to win them all. There's nobody in the Pro Football Hall of Fame down the road here in Canton that won every single football game they ever played. It just will not happen, whether it's against your rival, whether it's inside of your conference, whether it's a national championship game. I've been there, man. Fortunately for me as a starter, I never lost to Michigan, but on the backside of that, we got smoked in a national championship game. So, you know what? It happens, man. It happens to the best of us. And that's really when we learn the most about ourselves. Hopefully, if you have great teachers, if you have great people around you, you will learn a lot about yourself from this. Some guys may just, they might put themselves in a bubble and say, screw it. I'm upset about it. I'm pissed about it. Don't want to talk about it, but try and do the opposite, man. Watch the film, self-scout, study yourself, see what you did wrong. Think about some of the words you may have said in the post-game presser about, that's just another game. No, it's not just another game. This is the game. It's the most important game in college football. Got to act like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, part of my thought process was exactly that. They felt that exact same thing from last year and, drives my prediction as well for how I thought this game was going to go. And I will say, a lot of what I thought was going to happen was really close to happening. Right. I'm just going to throw that out there. I thought Ohio State would come out, they'd score quick, and they would basically be in control of the game in the first half. They were. But they just left too much out there, left too many points out there. compared to what I thought was going to happen. I thought the field goals, the loss on downs, what have you, I thought those would have been scores, and they very well could have been. If Ohio State had their stuff together, right, then that's a 21-3 game, and then it's a totally different ballgame from that point. And then maybe some of the other things don't happen from the big play standpoint. You're able to, trust a little bit more on the outside and give less to trying to stop the run. But that was really close. If Michigan doesn't do exactly what they need to in the first half, if Ohio State takes the couple scores that they left on the table, it's a totally different ballgame. And in the second half, I thought it would be close going into the fourth quarter. If you listen back to that episode, people, you would hear I said it was going to be a one-score game going into the fourth, which it was. And then my belief was that Ohio State would pull away with maybe a late score or two to get the double-digit win. Ended up being Michigan getting those late scores to get the double-digit win, but much closer game than the 22 points would indicate.
Hey, you know what? Just like the Buckeyes left a lot of meat on the plate, a lot of food on the plate. They must have left a little crow for you on there to be able to just kind of this little post Thanksgiving crow for you to chew on, man. I'll tell you this: my predictions came true, other than the score. I as well picked Ohio State to win the game, but I threw this one little nugget out there. If you don't come with a different attitude, you will lose the game. If you show up and you are soft, if you don't come out with the right mindset, if you don't come out with the mentality of every time you break the huddle that you're ready to go to war and that you're going to punish the person across from you, you will lose the game. And they did. The Ohio State Buckeyes, whether it was across the defensive line or the offensive line, they got beat. 100% got beat. And that's where we lost the game, especially in the second half, as you mentioned. I think 10 rushing yards going into halftime. Yep. Hey, credit Coach Harbaugh and his staff. Give credit where credit is due. They made the adjustments needed, and they got one past Jim Knowles. They got one past the Buckeyes. They got one past Coach Day. Secondary came out soft. Offensive line came out soft, and Michigan won the second half. We used to have a guy, our legendary offensive line coach, Jim Bowman, he would say it's a tale of two halves. Well, it was a tale of two halves. We won the first half. They won the second half. There you go.
Yep. That was a great impersonation too.
Oh, TJ, that was a heck of a move there. I don't remember teaching you that in practice.
Hope he's watching. Yeah.
That would have been my Superman move. If I saw these guys trying to plant a flag in the middle of the field, I would have went airborne, right? And now I didn't have to worry about that because we never lost to them. But if they would have tried to do that in my house, I don't care who we were playing the next game. Suspend me, eject me, kick me out, whatever. You go to do that, I'm going Superman style over top of 5 of those dudes. I'm getting to the flag. I'm ripping it down. You may beat my ass, and I will take that ass whooping just to make sure that flag doesn't get planted. I'll take one for the team. I saw a bunch of cats just walking off the field like, oh, well.
I mean, yeah. And you see all the former players too. I mean, yourself obviously included, that feel the exact same way, like it has changed. I mean, the culture of maybe the game, and maybe it's complacency. Maybe it's just you lose the edge of, you've expected to win it for so many times that all of a sudden it not that it doesn't mean as much, but you don't want it as much. And obviously they didn't want it that much. But to that point too, I mean, seeing that, and again, I can't sit here and say like one way or the other that they should have gone and just like started a fist fight at midfield,
right.
Like if the tables were turned, I would be ecstatic if Ohio State went and planted the flag at midfield at the big house, I would love that stuff. So I have to have the same kind of thought process on the other side too. And like as a player, yeah, it's disrespectful. Yeah, you don't want to see it, and I would like to see some kind of reaction, some I guess just outburst maybe of something that happened, but we didn't get it. And the last thing I will say too, before we move on to the first half specifically and talk a little bit more about what happened there and what didn't happen, probably more likely, and just stop tweeting at players and like just crapping on him. I mean, like, come on. Like, I understand your frustration and whatever else, but like, you don't need to
Stir
tweet at
that pot,
you don't
baby.
need to tweet at Trevion Henderson and
Oh,
say, you know, oh well, Blake Corum was out there with his shoulder pads on, to the point where then Trevion feels like he needs to just respond to you for whatever reason because you're just an ignorant person. Like, just let
hey,
it go. Like,
32 don't owe you nothing. He don't
yeah,
owe you nothing.
they're out there playing hurt every single week. I mean, every football player, I feel like, has some injury throughout the year that they have to play with, and they do, and they do it for your benefit as a fan because you want to see that team win. But then when they don't do exactly what you think they might do, all of a sudden you're big bad on Twitter, and you got the what is it, the power behind the keyboard to go and just talk your stuff to a guy that's doing everything he can to win the game. And it's just like stuff like that when you tweet at recruits and stuff that decommit, anything like that. Like, these are kids, like, let them live their life, let them go out and do what they're trying to do, which is, you know, win football games and get to the NFL at the end of the day, you know. But you don't need to say stuff like that. Have those opinions, but like, just don't tweet at them, for the love of God. Anyways, I digress. So first half, pretty good. Like I said, you know, I thought a lot got left on the field, especially points wise. But I thought the defense played really, really great. I thought they had a great game plan to stop the run. Granted, you're not dealing with Blake Corum for, you know, all of the running plays outside of what, 3 or 4 maybe that he had at the beginning of the game. So beat down a little bit, but dominated the line of scrimmage. You were moving the ball well, especially with tempo. Some self-inflicted wounds, false starts, issues with just drops. I mean, hitting guys on the fingers and just not finishing the play, I guess, is one of the bigger things that happened in the first half, and not finishing the half the way that you needed to. Because I do feel if Ohio State finishes the half the way that they could have, it's a totally different ball game. But credit again to your point, Jim Harbaugh and Michigan, JJ McCarthy, like, yeah, the run game wasn't working, but they made every single play that they needed to make to keep that game close going into halftime to make the adjustments that they did.
Yeah, and you really needed to put the foot on the gas pedal as you got closer to the end of the second quarter, because you knew that Michigan was going to be getting the ball to start the second half. So, you know, you knew that there was going to be adjustments. You know, Coach Harbaugh's got a great staff again. You know, credit them where credit is due. They made those adjustments, but leading up to that point, you felt like we had the momentum. And to me, I was totally mind blown at the fact that that was the first drop that Marvin Harrison Jr. has had all season. I mean, like, if that the fact that you don't continue to go back to that well at times, I understand that, you know, Cade Stover has made some strides.
Yep.
I believe he's up for the Mackey. You know, he's going to be on the All Big Ten list, whatnot. But on fourth down stuff, you know, I think the ball needs to get to your biggest playmaker's hands, and probably, to me, just hearing that stat alone, he's the best wide receiver in the country. I can't think of a whole lot of dudes that I'd rather have on my squad other than number 18. He made a sick catch early going down the sidelines. Was able to stretch it out into the touchdown. So why you're not going back to him, I think one of the things you'll look back on in this entire game, whether it was the first half or the second half, is the play calling. And that's what a lot of people are up in arms about, you know, and you've got the people out there, again, the haters out there, they're saying, listen, fire Ryan Day, fire this guy, fire that guy, you know. But to a certain extent, you have to take some ownership as a coaching staff and say that, you know, maybe we didn't prepare the right way to call this game, because the players on the field have to make their plays. The coaches in the box, they got to make the right calls. And I don't think we did at times, other than, as I texted you throughout the ball game, we did get carries from Chip Trainum. So that was cool. That was cool to see. And I think I even tweeted Ryan Day, like, keep that same energy, bro. Second half, keep that energy.
Here's the thing that blows my mind, though, about that too. and kind of revolves also with the play calling. But like one of the things I thought was going to happen was I thought we'd see more of like the wrinkles, right? That we continue to hear about in play calling, as well as just like what we have in our arsenal, right? Maybe CJ Stroud pulls it, runs, gets some yards, whatever. Like, to me, the only wrinkle I saw in the entire game, aside from the punt that was supposed to be a fake punt that then got botched and, could have also changed the game, um, was the wrinkle that Chip Trayanum was all of a sudden the running back. And like, that's not a wrinkle. I don't know what that is. But like, and maybe that was the plan. I just like having a guy that has only run once the entire year. Like, I would have liked to have seen him earlier in the year to get more of that fluid, comfortability in the running game, or like use him, but also continue to use guys like Dallin Hayden, who, just comes off of 100-yard plus rushing game, and Mayan Williams, who's there and available for you. Like, but and to that point too, like, you and I obviously texted during it about the Chip Trayanum runs. So it was very exciting to be right on the money on that one. But just seemed like that was really the only like wrench that was even attempted to throw Michigan's way.
Yeah, the lack of creativity in some of the play calling is really it felt very vanilla. Again, not going back to probably the hottest weapon in America in
Yeah.
college football. To what you said there about Demonte, he has, I mean, thoroughly impressed me enough to the fact that you had nothing coming out of the backfield
Mhm.
coming into this game, and you're playing against the number 3 team in the country, and you are hitting them for like 5, 6, 7 yards every time. We've talked about it on this show all season long. Well, a little bit more towards the end, the second half of the season, but the carries he got at Arizona State, when he was there as a freshman, he looked like a back that could be playing on Sundays. I mean, multiple state championships at Archbishop Hoban, who's going to be playing for another state championship here this Thursday night against Toledo Central Catholic. For me, if I'm Dallin Hayden, I might be a little salty.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned it, Ryan. He comes off a 100-yard performance. He kind of did his thing against Northwestern when we had some injuries. He came in there against Maryland. He was the guy, 100-yard performance. I'd be like, dang, coach, what? Did I not earn the opportunity? Did I not show you enough to be able to earn some more of those carries? Now, again, I think Jim Harbaugh, to think that the entire week of practice that they weren't saying in some of their meetings, okay, what are we going to do with number 19? What are we going to do
Mhm.
about number 19? Because somewhere he's going to pop up in this ball game. So the eyes were going to be on him. It wasn't like Chip was coming out here and surprising anybody, but where was the surprise of a Y screen or some type of wrinkle in a backdoor reverse pass, something like that. I mean, especially in the second half, you get down and boy, it's tough to think that maybe some of these new coaches, maybe the moment was a little bit too big for them.
Yeah. So you're saying maybe something like, I don't know, a linebacker switching to running back, uh, getting stuffed on one play, running the exact same play later in the game, but instead of running it, he does a pop pass over the line of scrimmage to a wide open player for a huge gain. That
Nice
would be a
play,
nice wrinkle, you
nice
know?
play call. Hey, nice play call, Jim. I like it, man. But yeah, how about I don't know, just how about a bubble screen?
Right. Right. A bubble screen that works, though. Let's throw that caveat in
Bubble
there.
screen for 5 or more yards, 5 or
Well,
more.
yeah, how about that instead of maybe, I don't know, a pitch to
Yeah.
your fifth string running back on, was that, it was fourth down, right? Third down, fourth
Yeah,
down? I don't remember.
here's the other thing too, Ryan, and I remember this fondly as during my days as a player. Like it was always the big to do was who's actually calling the play.
Mhm.
How much leeway does CJ Stroud have at the line of scrimmage? You're a Heisman candidate, which that's gone, that's off the plate now. But you are a Heisman candidate. You would think that the coach would give you the keys to the Ferrari and let you just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to check out of this. I'm going to go to that. Or I see this defense rolling over the top here. Let's do this to the backside. Ohio, let's check out of it. Go to the left side instead of the right side. But who's really calling the plays? Everybody always wondered. They always thought it was Tress, or they thought it was Bowman, or they thought it was Joe Daniels, or they didn't know who it was. So I don't know who really is calling the plays. Is there a veto process? Okay, I like that. Give me 2 plays to pick from, and I'll look at the situation and see what we decide to run. So, maybe I really didn't listen to much of the coaches after the game. Most of us probably didn't want to hear from anybody after the game.
Yeah, I watched it by myself for that exact reason. So it's not a pretty sight in the McClincy household that day. I will just go ahead and throw that out there. But no, and like the thing that baffles me too, and we'll kind of touch on some of the second half, halftime adjustments and going into, the just blowout that ended up happening in the second half at least. But it was like, man, I don't know why the obsession is to throw even just all to the sidelines. Like every pass, and CJ has a lot of great touch passes on those plays. But I mean, you're just giving yourself an extra defender by having the sideline, and like you have to throw a perfect pass in a lot of cases, otherwise, you're basically just limited in so many different ways because one, it's already a far throw going all the way to the sideline, just regardless of how deep it is downfield. And now you can risk playing man coverage because if they're just going to keep throwing it to the sideline, like, yeah, Marvin Harrison has a great catch, but can any other wide receiver make that catch? Maybe not. I mean, but like you had Emeka Egbuka running wild across the middle of the field on multiple occasions, wide open. Why not go to Marvin Harrison, who made significant catches in the middle of the field for first downs? Or, and it's been the case all year, I feel like, that it just goes side to side from a running game perspective, from a passing game perspective, and not enough goes across the middle. And if you got the players that Ohio State has on offense and the weapons specifically in the wide receiver room that they have, you can trust that they're going to beat any coverage that they have in front of them and that they'll find the holes, to be able to get open in those instances. And it's just much harder to do when you continuously are just throwing it up at the sideline.
Yeah, the other thing you have to take into account too, that even though you are a Heisman candidate at quarterback, it doesn't mean that your confidence can't get shook either. I mean, just think about CJ Stroud last year up in Ann Arbor. He had the opportunity to put his ass on the line and pick up a first down while running the ball, and it didn't happen. I think that his confidence was rattled and shaken up there. And I don't know the kid personally, but I'm just going off of what I saw. You had a chance to stroke Cade Stover on a 4th and 1, and you missed. Yep. You missed. Okay. The ball was too high. Cade went up, tried to make a great play on it, But you know what? You hit him you twice, right? You hit him right where he needs to be. So maybe to a coin here that CJ just maybe he was a little bit off coming across the middle, and maybe it's a conversation that you have with coach, like, hey, you know what, give me some easy ones here. Let's keep it to the sidelines, maybe the sun is hitting him the wrong way in the eyes. I don't know what it is, man, but those are balls that you want to put your name up there next to Troy Smith and Eddie George and Hop and Vic and Les and Arch. You got to make those. Those have to be completed.
Yep. Yeah. And like, and it just blows my mind sometimes, like watching it, and it's so frustrating to see. And I think part of that too, and kind of to your point of who's calling the plays, right? Goes into that 4th down ended up being a punt, although it didn't seem like Ryan Day was actually going to punt. But where you see CJ Stroud saying, keep the offense on, keep the offense on. They had already shot themselves in the foot multiple times, getting back to 1st and 35. And they had a rhythm, had 2 big plays back to back. And now you're 4th and, 6? And CJ Stroud wants that moment. He's calling for that moment, and he gets shut down. And, who knows what happens if he gets that. But like, to me, it also shows somewhat of maybe a lack of trust from Ryan Day to give the keys to CJ Stroud fully. We've heard a lot about, him being able to actually audible now at the line of scrimmage, but I haven't seen it. And at least not to the extent that, if you're going to give him the trust that a Heisman, potential quarterback should and can have, then you got to give him the trust. And that's one thing as we kind of look at kind of where do we go from here, right? Um, that I think Ryan Day has to also like do some soul searching and like give up some of this control that he tries to have his hand into every single aspect. And I think it was on the scoop boards that it was mentioned that he coaches as if he's playing quarterback. And at some point, if you're going to make the change, like you got to trust the guys around you too, and you got to trust that they're going to, understand what you've taught them and what you also would do in that scenario. And like, man, just let him play. At the end of the day, granted, he caught him off, goes to do a fake punt, and then ends up not being a fake punt, and that was wide open, man. God, like looking back at that, I thought it looked weird live in game, but like looking back at it, man, ugh.
You know what, man? You talk about shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, I wish like Plaxico Burress could have come out of the stands and shot G. Scott in the foot, because literally that was maybe one of the most selfish
Yeah.
plays I've ever seen in Ohio State history. And to me, like if that was my teammate, I might beat your ass in the locker room. I literally might beat your ass in the locker room for doing something that selfish and costing your team. Because as you mentioned, we
Mhm.
almost were able to overcome it. There's not a whole lot of people
Yep.
that can overcome 1st and 35, but to have a moment where you're going to decide to headbutt somebody out of bounds. I mean, just a pansy
Mm.
move. You don't deserve to wear the uniform. You should walk home. You don't deserve to get any reps. I mean, dude, you're demoted in my book. I don't really want nothing to do with you, especially in a game of that magnitude. Regardless of any game, it wouldn't be any worse if you did it against Bowling Green or Kent State.
Mm.
But that moment, how you allow yourself to lose your cool is beyond me. But for Ryan Day, maybe he hasn't expressed the importance enough. Now, I will tell you this: I haven't been down to the Woody Hayes Center other than for spring ball. I don't know what they do on a daily basis. But maybe you need to put more of the focus back on the Michigan Wolverines on a daily basis. For 364 days out of the year, Jim Tressel made sure that at least 5 minutes out of every day we talked about Michigan. We did something
Mhm.
to prepare for Michigan. We talked about whether it was we watched a little piece of film, we watched a series from the game the year before, whether we did a conditioning drill in practice. It was a go blue period for 5 minutes. Whether it was just talking about statistics of how hard it is to win in the state of Michigan and how hard it is to win in the state of Ohio. So these are things that maybe these guys don't know, and all
Mhm.
coaches have different coaching philosophies. We've talked about that thus far with the offensive line and Coach Justin. He's come in here from UCLA. And you know what? I don't know his philosophy, but maybe he needs some former players. I put a post up there on BuckeyeScoop.com. Go over and check it out. Write some comments on there. But the thread basically alluded to not only do maybe some of these players need to hear from some former guys that did it and were successful at it, got it done the way it's supposed to. Maybe some of these coaches need that as well. I don't know if Coach Justin really understands what it means to play in the greatest rivalry in all of sports.
Mhm.
First year head coach or first year associate head coach, offensive line coach, maybe he needs to have that history lesson. I was fortunate. I had guys like Dick Shaffrath, the Mule, and John Hicks around me. God rest both their souls. Those are two of the baddest offensive linemen to ever suit up at any level of football. Um, maybe they need some more guys like that around the locker room, and not some of these hanger-ons that just want to show up there and do cardio and work out next to the guys and be their buddy and all that. You know what? That
Yeah.
that's that ain't working for me. That ain't cutting it for me, man. You need somebody in there that's a real dog that's going to tell you, hey, you ain't getting it done. Here's what you need to do to get it done. Here's what a warrior would do. Here's what a guy that, you know what? I'm a nasty mother. You know what? When we take the line of scrimmage, this is the attitude that you have to have if you're a part of the starting offensive line at Ohio State, there's a way you carry yourself. And I didn't see anybody carrying themselves that manner.
Yeah. No, I agree. And a couple of my thoughts is we'll get into it in the next segment, but um, just around like you got to bring somebody in that can instill exactly what you just mentioned into these kids and these coaches and like get back to that just grind of it and like it's not going to be fun. It shouldn't be fun. It should be work and it should feel like work and it should feel like hard work. And I'm sure it does a lot of times, and I'm not going to say that the kids don't work hard. I think they do. But this game is different. And if you don't have somebody that does understand it to that level or somebody in the room or in the building that really can instill that, then eventually, yeah, complacency can take over, especially when it's been so consistently lopsided for one team for so long. You know what I mean? And to the G Scott stuff, like I love G Scott. He was one of my favorite players coming into this year, and I was really looking for him to have some sort of a breakout, year at some point, and really make an impact because I do think he's a mismatch, for this offense as well. But um, on the flip side of that, you saw JJ McCarthy go up to a player of his, and I don't remember who it was, who was about to do something similar. And he puts his hand on him and he pushes him back and they get back to the line. And that is, to me, the biggest flip in there because they knew that they needed to play flawless. They couldn't let the emotion in the game get the better of them to make a mistake like that. And that to me comes a lot down to not only just the leadership difference, maybe, but also just like coaching, and at the end of the day, those types of things come down solely to how are you being coached?
Yep. You know what our first segment was to start the week out for Michigan week? Coach Tressel would bring in Earl Bruce, and he would set the tone before the first practice, before we would go out there and we'd march with the band inside of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and we'd have our team meal and we'd break down film. He would bring in what we called Hurricane Bruce, and the tone was set from the moment he took the podium and started talking, and it was you know what? It was about what it means to wear the scarlet and gray. It was, you know what? You don't win this game, you walk the back alleys of High
Hmm.
Street. You don't even show your face out on High Street. Especially if you do some crap like that inside of a game. But you know what? I will tell you this. Growing up a Michigan fan, um, you always see somebody kind of flex their muscle in this game that maybe was a relative unknown. Not to say JJ McCarthy was that, but you know what? I think we found out his true leadership skills based off of what you just said, allowing his or making sure that his guys were not allowing themselves to fall into those traps.
Hmm.
Because again, it's very very hard to win in the state of Ohio when you come into the horseshoe. So you have to play flawless. You can't have those penalties or stupid things, or you will lose.
Hmm.
But man, Donovan Edwards, that felt so Tim Biaka Batuka ish. If
Yeah.
we'll use that word, but Donovan just, you know what, he was prepared and ready for his moment, and that's the one great thing I love about football players. I'm a football fan first. I'm a fan of competition and the competitors in the arena. A guy that may not have gotten a ton of carries during a regular season was maybe overshadowed by the guy in front of him, but when his number was called, he was ready for the moment. He was prepared, and I respect the hell out of that.
And the other thing too, and to piggyback off of that too, is he was injured for a lot of it too, and like they kept him out. He wasn't forced back into action early. He wasn't put into games where he maybe tweaks it or anything like that. And you know, maybe it wasn't as easy for Ohio State to be able to do that, just given the fact that most of the room was hurt. And, luckily Michigan was able to keep Blake Corum healthy for the entire year so that they didn't need it. But I think that's also a big impact is because, like, then you have a moment where he is needed and he's fully healthy and he's ready to come in and make that impact and play the way that he needed to play. And he did. And it goes into also just the last thing about the second half, which is to me, like, again, I think we agree. Ohio State won the first half pretty handily. Did they leave some opportunities on the board? Absolutely. Would that have changed the game? Maybe. But the second half, like seeing just the adjustments that both teams made or didn't make, and just seeing how impactful Michigan was with those changes in the second half to come down after not really moving the ball well in the first half, come down, score on their opening possession, which was huge, and then just really dictate the game from that point on. And granted, yeah, it was a 1 point game. It was still close. Ohio State still had opportunities in the third period or in the third quarter to get scores, to get back on the board, to retake the lead, etc. But execution wasn't there. The adjustments that Michigan made, like offensively and defensively, Ohio State and Ryan Day and Jim Knowles just got outcoached, in my opinion. I think that's the biggest, the biggest factor for why this game went the way that it did.
And that's interesting to me too, because we were just praising Jim Knowles for what he did when I believe it was the young backup quarterback for the Indiana Hoosiers when he came into the ball game, and he kind of led the group down the field on a big drive, and instantly Jim Knowles makes that switch and tightens up the defense, pulls a guy out of the box or puts a spy in there. Can't remember what he did, but he switched up the next series, and it completely took that quarterback out of the rhythm that he had just started. Really didn't see that in the second half, and that was kind of surprising because Jim Knowles just doesn't seem like the type of guy to get rolled on like that.
Well, and we've seen it all year. I mean, like he has turned this defense around, and it took him many years at the various different schools that he's coached to turn around their defenses. Granted, they had less talent on the defensive side of the ball at those schools. So yeah, it takes 4, 5 years, 3, 4 years, however long, at both at Duke and at Oklahoma State. And it took time, but he was able to turn those teams into top 5, top 10 defenses. It's going to take time at Ohio State too. I don't think anybody coming into this year would have said, would have shaken a stick at the difference from last year's defense to what we've seen this year. I think he's done a great job turning that around, but it is going to take a little bit of time. And people that are like, oh, you don't pay $1.9 million to do this. Well, 2 weeks ago, you were saying how great of a defense this was and how much of an impact he's had on this team. And he's a Broyles Award, recipient, essentially. It's all but locked down. And yes, he had a bad game. He needed to make the changes that he had made all year. And that's what it kind of, and I don't know what happened, right? Because we've seen him make those changes all year. And it just seemed like everybody just tightened up too much in the second half. And like, I still think he's the right hire. I think he's the right move. I don't think you move on from him. And I definitely don't think you move on from Ryan Day. And like anybody that thinks that, oh, fire Ryan Day now is just, please go away. Please. It's not time yet. Imagine where Michigan would be if they fired Jim Harbaugh after, he lost, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row. Like obviously he had his time to do it. And like, is Ryan Day Urban Meyer? No. But like honestly, I look back at what Urban Meyer did too, and like people that are wanting him back, and it's like he won a championship, yes. He made one other college football playoff appearance. And in that college football playoff appearance, he got blown out by Clemson 31-0. So like, yes, he beat Michigan every year, but Ryan Day has gone to the playoff virtually every single year he's been here as head coach. And he's been competitive, and I want to give him the time that he needs to do his soul searching, make the changes that he needs to make, like he did last year with hiring Jim Knowles and giving up the single high look on defense and letting Jim Knowles handle that side of the ball. And maybe he got a little bit in his head and tried to get involved on that in this game. I don't know, but I have to think he'll be able to make the right decisions in this offseason to right the ship and get this team going. And maybe that's giving up play calling. Let Kevin Wilson run the place. Unless he already is, and then don't. But, give up the play calling duties and just focus on being a head coach and get the guy in there that's going to ultimately, that you have the trust to run it the way that it needs to be run, and that isn't going to throw the ball to the sideline or bubble screens or stretch zone or whatever, and is just going to pound the ball and get this team moving north and south, in my opinion.
Hey, and as our Scoop CEO would tell you, maybe somebody needs to go take a trip and see the Wizard. You know, sometimes the Wizard will give you some heart. Sometimes the Wizard will give you some brains. Sometimes just sometimes it's just it takes a little, as you said, soul searching. Sit back, self scout yourself, man. I don't think enough guys do this. Hey, here's what we're putting out here. If I was going to come in and defend that, what would I do?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I was an offense and I was going against his defense, this is what I would do. So there's so many different aspects when you get to the Division I college football level that the greats, the Urbans, the Sabins, these guys, man, there's no stone that goes unturned.
Yeah. And I mean, to the point earlier, like, you need to bring somebody in that gets the Michigan game to a higher level. Because I think Ryan Day has most of the rest of it figured out from just what this team can and needs to be, but it's this game that he just can't get over, for whatever reason. And
give me a call, brother. I got the Buckeye Leaf bat phone right here, man. You need a good conversation, man. Give me a call, man.
Right. And get somebody like, I mean, shit, hire Urban and Tressel as analysts. Just put them in the building and just let them, their sole focus as analysts is just to, and I know that's a ridiculous thing because they're not going to be able to afford it, but
right. But it's not though, because I mean, Coach Dress,
he had an office. The idea.
He had an office for Earl Bruce and John Cooper at the Woody Hayes Center. Coach Tress said, you know what? I need the two former coaches here in the building telling me, you know what, maybe try that. Or you know what, this or that. I was in this situation before. Maybe you could do this and this will help you out. You're right. I know it would be, obviously you can't afford to do something like that. But hey, Coach Tress is getting ready to retire. He's going to be stepping down in February, just 2 months from now. Maybe and I know that Coach Day, Coach Tress has told me before that Coach Day will call him maybe on a daily basis at times. So I know he's picking his brain, but you're right. You may need some analysts in there. Somebody just crunching the numbers, man. Just doing the analytics and kind of letting you know where you're standing at.
You know who else is retiring pretty soon is Christina Johnson. She's retiring. So I don't know if you can fast track Jim Tressel to get his PhD, but it'd be worth a look at president of the university there, get him and Gene Smith and the team back together, the A team.
I don't know about that. I don't know if Mr. Smith is going down that alley. I don't know if Coach Tress wants to go down that alley either.
unlikely. But it can be at any level like that. But former players, like, get somebody in there that has the energy, that gets it, because you look at what the former players are saying about this team, about the culture, about how hard it was under Urban. Like, that was one aspect that I will give full credit for in that sense, is he had the culture that you were going to work. And if you didn't work, you weren't going to play. And you had to work hard. And, is that uncomfortable for some people? Yeah, probably. But if you want to be, the best at the next level, if you want to be at the best at that level, then you have to work. And, this staff maybe, or somebody needs to just be in the room, in the building, that can really instill some of that more so than what is currently there. And just really hammer home, as you said, 365 days a year, what this team is to them. What is Michigan to them? What does this game mean to them? What does this game mean to the state of Ohio, to the university, to all the fans? Like, this is the game for a reason. And
it's everything, man.
You have to win it. You have to win it. And again, I have confidence in Ryan Day. I don't think you move on. And, I challenge somebody in the comments. Tell me who you would hire other than Urban. Don't say Urban. For the love of God, don't say Urban, because he's not. But give me your comments in the comment section below who you would replace Ryan Day with today. And it can't be Luke Fickell either, because he's gone.
Give me can I get Deion Sanders or Frank Reich? How about Frank Reich, man? Give me Frank Reich and Deion Sanders, man.
I don't know, man. Deion, I would love Deion, but It would be a totally different program under Dion. That's
I
for
would love
sure.
it.
That's for sure.
Bring that swag back, man.
But regardless, it's Ryan Day's team, and even with the loss on Saturday, Ohio State still has a path to the college football playoff this year, regardless of what anybody thinks or feels about whether this team deserves it after losing to their rival. Like, I agree. I don't necessarily know that the team deserves it, but show me, again, in the comments, show me a team that is more deserving of Ohio State for the 4 spot, assuming, of course, either a TCU or a USC lose.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see how it shakes out. I mean, I don't think anybody's really given Purdue any chance to beat Michigan in a Big Ten championship game, but you made it that far, and you're going to be over there in a neutral site. You know what? Who's to say that the whole thing doesn't get shaken up and something like that happens? So, for me, I like to see how it all comes down here to these final games, this last weekend of championship football, to see who may or may not get in. LSU is going to have a big game. They're going to have an opportunity to play spoiler. So it'll be fun. I think Ohio State still backdoors their way into it, climbing in that number 4 spot. But it's going to be tough, and you're going to need some help.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see, because for those of you who don't know, we're recording this Tuesday late, or I guess early evening. So selection show hasn't yet happened. So we don't know exactly what the committee is going to do with the presumably 5 and 6 spots of Ohio State and Alabama. I assume it's going to be Ohio State 5, Alabama 6. It makes sense to me. The other thing is the arguments that, oh, well, Alabama's more deserving. Why? Because they have 2 losses? 2 quality losses. That's the difference. A quality loss, as we all know in the SEC, equals a win everywhere else in the country. So a quality loss or not, it doesn't matter. They're still not also playing for their conference championship either. And in reality, if Ohio State and Michigan played in the Big 12 or the Pac 12, both would be playing for their conference championship again this Saturday. So because Ohio State plays in the same division as Michigan, they're not technically playing, but let's all be honest here. The Big Ten championship game was played on Saturday in the Horseshoe. So if you want to go that route, Ohio State did play for their conference championship. I mean, yes, Purdue is going to be on the field, but
I've seen crazier stuff happen. But you're right. You're right. Now, you know what? There's so many different things you can play into. Now that you have a Big Ten championship game the week after the Ohio State Michigan game, you've seen it before tons of times, Ryan, where you come off this big high of beating your rival and planting the flag and having this massive second half of football, and all those emotions take toll on you. Now, at the Division I college football level, you are expected, especially if you want to play at the next level after that, which is in the NFL or any type of professional league, you're expected to be able to control those emotions and keep them in check. But that's a huge tidal wave to ride.
Mm-hmm.
So you could come out, and who's to say that Purdue doesn't get the ball to bounce their way a few times? Maybe a fumble, maybe a special teams faux pas, and just hope that something happens. They will need that to happen for them to win, because yes, on paper, Michigan is the better football team, but that's why we line up and play it. And
yeah.
I would be excited to see if TCU can get into this deal. I've always been rooting for the underdog. Back to when when we were getting ready to play Florida in the national championship game, we were sitting there just a few days before inside of Glendale, and we watched old number 41 there with Statue of Liberty play for Boise State as they were able to beat Adrian Peterson and the Oklahoma Sooners. So, I've always felt that back then, Boise State, TCU, these are schools that deserve a shot. If you're going to go undefeated, I don't care, quality opponent inside of your conference, however the records may look, you go undefeated in Division I college football, I think you deserve a shot.
You asked a question. Who's to say that some balls don't bounce Purdue's way? Who's to say that they're not going to get it? I'm to say, because obviously I know what I'm talking about when I'm making picks here. Okay, so yeah,
I'm gonna have to troll you on Saturday, man. Don't make OG7 Deuce come and troll you, Ryan.
Come on now. No, I agree. Like I think TCU. I think they get a lot of guff for being TCU. I think. But they've played a lot of, tough teams this year. They've played a lot of tough games, and they've gutted out a lot of wins. And if they get the opportunity, it'll be nice to see them in there. But think about this scenario, 2 scenarios, right? USC loses. Or no, I'm sorry, TCU loses. USC wins, right? So you've got Georgia, Michigan, USC, and then you have TCU, Ohio State in the 4th spot, right? Flashbacks of, I don't know, maybe a 2014 run where Ohio State ekes past a TCU, makes the playoff, beats an SEC team, and then potentially beats a Pac-12 team for the title. I don't know. It's very similar. Very similar. Just throwing that out there. Second scenario, both teams lose, USC and TCU, and we get a Georgia-Alabama round 1 semifinal and an Ohio State-Michigan round 1 semifinal. All the marbles, Big Ten versus SEC. Who comes out?
I don't see anybody beating Georgia right now. Honestly, they are the best team in the country. And nobody wanted to see Alabama get back into this deal with sitting at 9-2 with 2 losses. That everybody's like, oh, thankfully we're not going to have Alabama in the college football playoff again. So that would be crazy if they got in. And then you and I just talked about a week or two ago about a potential rematch of Ohio State and Michigan. So it would be interesting to see how it shakes out. That's a good thing about the playoff. There's different scenarios that we can all talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We got the show coming up here tonight. We'll see how it falls. We'll see what happens on Championship Saturday. Let the chips fall where they may, and let's just line up and play some football. Let's just come out and play a better brand of football. Whoever we play, whether it's Rose Bowl, I don't care if it's the Alamo Bowl, I don't care, Fiesta Bowl, wherever the hell you're at, come out and just play a better brand of football, please. Show some heart.
You got to make some pretty quick changes if you're Ryan Day in that case, But now, I mean, from a committee perspective, that would be a huge money foursome. If it ended up being Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, I mean, that's just you printing money at that point.
If they need a place to put it, I got a vault back here, man. I got a couple safes in here. If they want to stack up some of them scoop chips, man, they're already starting to print. Stack it up, man. Come over here, bring me some of that money. I promise I won't touch it.
You know where to go. But yeah, no. As you said, we got the show tonight. I think this rankings will be really impactful for I think how it's all going to shake out ultimately. As we said earlier, Ohio State does need some help if they are going to get in, but the possibility is still there. And if you're a fan that is saying that they don't deserve to get in and that they deserve to be left out, and then they do get in, I also don't want to see you rooting for them on Twitter after. You're a fair weather fan. You weren't there. You weren't there. So that's the last rant that I have about all the ridiculous things that I've seen over the last few days. It's a sad day for a second year in a row. I'm not sure how Michigan fans did it for as long as they have.
At the end of the day, it's still always OHIO. We'll get back to where we need to go, man. It's still always go Bucks
all day. And as always, thank you to Scoop Nation for listening, for watching. Be sure to leave your comments with your thoughts, and also be sure to follow us on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel here, as well as check out BuckeyeScoop.com. We'll have all this content as well as access to our Ask the Insiders board so that you can continue the conversation with the best community of Ohio State fans in the land. And until next week, TJ, always a pleasure having you on. Appreciate you talking me through all of this. It's not often that we have to talk about an Ohio State loss to Michigan, but it has been more recent than I would like.
The mortgage is still going to show up, man. Bills are still going to be due. The planet's still going to spin on its axis, unless you ask Kyrie Irving, and maybe it'll change. I don't know.
I don't know. The axis could be it's like a pizza. It's still got axis, right? No, appreciate it as always, TJ. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Ryan. All right, Scoop Nation.